Black woman told to serve coffee. 10 minutes later, everyone is under her command. Denise Johnson took a deep breath as she entered the conference room at Williams & Partners Construction in Chicago's business district. Her 35 years of experience in real estate had prepared her for many situations, but not for what was about to happen. "Hey, you there!" shouted Richard Williams, the CFO, without even looking up from his papers. "Can you serve coffee for everyone before the buyer arrives? And get it right this time. The last employee made it bitter." Denise glanced around the table. Seated there were the 5 partners of the construction company, which had been trying for months to sell its operations to escape a devastating financial crisis. She recognized every face from the photos she'd studied. Michael Williams, the company president and Richard's older brother, Brian Thompson, the construction director, Jennifer Davis, the only woman on the board, and Stephen Miller, the commercial director. "What are you waiting for?" Richard pressed, pointing to the side table where a coffee tray sat. "The meeting starts in 5 minutes, and this so-called Denise Johnson could arrive any second. Word is she's quite demanding." Michael Williams scoffed. "Demanding? A woman in construction, probably some entitled heiress who got daddy's money and now wants to play businesswoman, will get the price way down." Denise felt her blood boil but kept her composure. After 20 years building a real estate empire, she'd faced similar prejudices hundreds of times. This time, she decided, would be different. She walked to the side table and picked up the coffee tray. "Excuse me," she said, approaching Michael with the first cup. "Well, at least you're polite," the president remarked without looking at her. "I hope this Denise Johnson is more civilized than the other women who've tried negotiating with us." The last one left in tears. Brian Thompson chuckled. "Remember that architect who came by last year? Thought she knew construction just because she had a diploma on her wall." "Women don't have the stomach for this business," Stephen Miller added, accepting his cup. "It's a man's world. Takes strength, determination, decision-making." Jennifer Davis stayed silent, but Denise noticed the discomfort on her face. It was clear she suffered in that sexist environment too. "The coffee's cold," Richard complained after a sip. "You can't even make coffee right. How does a company hire people like this?" "My apologies, sir," Denise replied softly, continuing to serve. "I'll get another." But instead of fetching fresh coffee, she set the tray down and opened the executive folder she'd been carrying. "Actually, gentlemen," she said, pulling out a stack of documents, "I'm Denise Johnson, the buyer you've been waiting for." The silence in the room was deafening. The 5 faces stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to disbelief to panic. Michael Williams was the first to recover. This must be some misunderstanding," he stammered. I mean, ma'am. I own Johnson Development Group," Denise continued, her voice calm and professional. "For the last 6 months, I've thoroughly analyzed Williams & Partners Construction's financial situation, and I can tell you, you're in much worse shape than you think." She opened the first document and placed it on the table. $14 million in labor debts, 3 projects halted due to unpaid suppliers, 2 lawsuits for environmental damages, and that's just the beginning. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Richard tried to protest, but his voice came out shaky. We have some temporary issues, but nothing we can't resolve." "Temporary?" Denise laughed dryly. "Gentlemen, you've gone 18 months without completing a single project. Your biggest clients have cancelled contracts. The bank is about to call in your primary debt." She pulled out another document. "Here's the report I commissioned from an independent auditing firm. You have exactly 45 days before total bankruptcy." Jennifer Davis swallowed hard. "How did you get this information?" "It's confidential." "In the business world, Ms. Davis, information is power," Denise replied, "and I always do my homework before any negotiation." Michael tried to regain control. "Listen here, young lady, I mean Ms. Johnson. Even if this information is accurate, our company has considerable market value. We own prime real estate, expensive equipment." "Mortgaged properties," Denise interrupted, "pawned equipment, trademarks under legal restrictions." She spread more papers across the table. I made sure to verify every asset you claim to have. The reality is, Williams and Partners Construction is worth less on paper than its debts. Stephen Miller was visibly nervous. Then why are you here? If we're a worthless company, why waste your time? Denise smiled for the first time since entering the room. Because I'm not interested in buying your company, Mr. Miller. I've already bought it. The shock was even greater than before. The five partners exchanged glances, struggling to process the information. What do you mean you've already bought it? Michael asked, his voice barely a whisper. Over the last 3 months, through different investment firms, I acquired all of the construction company's primary debts, Denise explained, producing another set of papers. The bank, suppliers, workers in labor disputes, they all sold their claims to me at a discount. She pointed to the signatures. This means you now owe me the $42 million you owed to other creditors. And since you can't pay, I can call in the debt and take all the company's assets. Richard stood abruptly. This is unacceptable. You can't just... I can, and I already have, Denise cut in. Everything perfectly legal. My legal department handled all the paperwork. Brian Thompson, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke. What do you want from us then? Denise gathered the documents and sat in the empty chair at the head of the table. I want to discuss the future. You can walk away with nothing, or you can accept an offer that might be your only chance to start over. Michael took a deep breath. What kind of offer? I'll absorb all the construction company's employees into my firm, Denise began. Engineers, architects, workers, administrative staff all keep their jobs with the same salaries and benefits. Jennifer looked confused. And us? You can stay too, Denise said, but as employees, not as partners or directors. Silence stretched for long seconds before Stephen exploded. Employees? We built this company from the ground up. We won't accept working as subordinates. Then you're free to leave, Denise replied calmly, but with no severance, and with the obligation to personally settle the debts you guaranteed with your personal assets. Richard paled. Our personal assets? Your homes, cars, bank accounts, Denise listed. Everything is tied up as collateral for the bank loans. When I call in the debts, you'll lose it all anyway. Michael tried one last move. What if we refuse your offer and decide to fight it in court? You can try, Denise shrugged. But my legal department is one of the best in the country, and you don't even have the money to hire a competent lawyer. She stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city below. You know, when I first started in construction 20 years ago, I faced the exact same kind of prejudice you've shown today. So many men thought I didn't have what it took to be in this industry. Turning back to them, she continued, the difference is, I used that doubt to my advantage. While you underestimated me, I worked twice as hard, studied more, planned better, executed with greater precision. Jennifer finally spoke up. Denise. May I call you Denise? I know how hard it is to be a woman in this field. Why are you doing this to us? Denise looked straight at her. Mrs. Davis, how long have you been with this company? 15 years. And in 15 years, how many times were you promoted to a position with real decision-making power? Jennifer hesitated. Well, I'm a director. A director with no real authority, Denise corrected. From the documents I've reviewed, you've never signed a single major contract, never been consulted on strategic investments. Your name is on the company just to fill a quota. Michael protested. That's not true. Jennifer has always been... Always been what? Denise interrupted. A figurehead. A way for you to claim you're not sexist. She returned to the table and pulled out another document. Here are the salaries of all the directors. Mrs. Davis earns 40% less than any of you for doing the same job. Jennifer looked at her colleagues with hurt and anger. Is this true, Michael? The company president avoided her gaze. Jennifer, you know we've always respected you. Respected me? She stood up, visibly shaken. 15 years of my life dedicated to this company, and you paid me like I was an intern? Richard tried to explain. Jennifer, you have to understand, when you started here, the industry was different. The industry was different, or you were different, she shot back. Denise watched the argument with interest. She was seeing exactly what she'd expected, the cracks in the partners' relationship starting to show. Mrs. Davis, she said, would you like to know what your position would be at my company? Jennifer looked at her curiously. What would it be? Director of Special Projects, responsible for overseeing all high-end residential developments. Salary equal to what your colleagues were making here. The other four men protested at once. You can't do this, Michael shouted. I'm just offering her a fair opportunity, Denise replied. Something you never did. Brian stood up nervously. Denise, you're trying to divide us. I'm not trying anything, she remained calm. I'm just showing you the truth. Do you really think you can run a company with a 1970s mindset? Stephen slammed his fist on the table. Our mindset built this company. And your mindset is also what destroyed it, Denise countered. How many clients have you lost because of prejudiced attitudes? How many talented employees left because they weren't valued? She opened her planner. I can name names if you'd like. Rachel Taylor, architect specializing in sustainable design, left after Mr. Thompson said women didn't understand construction. Brian turned red. That was taken out of context. Terrell Washington, black civil engineer with international credentials, Denise continued. He quit after being called a wannabe construction worker by Mr. Stephen. I never said that, Stephen protested. I have the recording, Denise said simply. Silence once again filled the room. The four men exchanged glances, realizing they were facing someone who knew all their mistakes and weaknesses. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Michael tried to steer the conversation elsewhere. Let's say we accept your terms. What guarantees do we have that you'll keep your word? Denise smiled. The same guarantees I had when you treated me like a cleaning staff member 10 minutes ago. Richard lowered his head. We didn't know who you were. And that justifies how you treated me, she asked. If I really were a cleaning staff member, would I deserve to be humiliated? No one answered. Do you know what your real problem is? Denise continued. It's not just the sexism or racism. It's the arrogance, the belief that you're superior to others just because you're white men with college degrees. She walked back to the window. Do you know how many employees at this company earn minimum wage? I'm not sure, Michael murmured. 230, she informed, from janitors to laborers, people supporting entire families on starvation wages. Meanwhile, the five of you paid yourselves million-dollar salaries and bonuses. Brian tried to defend himself. We're the ones responsible for the company. Responsible? Denise laughed bitterly. Responsible for bankrupting the company. Responsible for putting 230 employees out on the street. Responsible for leaving 3 projects unfinished and hundreds of families in distress. She returned to the table and spread out photos of the halted construction sites. Look at these pictures. See what your irresponsibility has caused. Families who bought apartments and are paying mortgages on homes they may never receive. Jennifer looked at the photos with sadness. I always said we should finish these projects before starting new ones. And what happened when you said that? Denise asked. Michael said women didn't understand construction timelines, Jennifer replied, staring directly at her former boss. Michael had no answer. Mrs. Jennifer, Denise said, at my company, when someone makes a suggestion, it's evaluated on its merits, not the gender or skin color of the person who made it. Stephen tried one last argument. Denise, you may be right about our mistakes, but we've known this market for decades. Our experience counts for something. Experience in bankrupting companies, she shot back. Experience in mistreating employees. Experience in discriminating against people. Richard sighed deeply. What do you want us to do? I want you to learn, Denise said. I want you to understand that competence has no color, no gender, no social class. She sat down again. I'll make one final offer. Agree to work for my company, with fair but not excessive salaries, and I'll complete the 3 stalled projects. That will save the employees' jobs and deliver the apartments to the families who bought them. Michael looked at the other partners. And if we refuse? Then I collect on all the debts, take the assets, and you walk away with nothing, she replied. I'll still hire the employees because they're not to blame for your mistakes. Jennifer was the first to speak. I accept. The four men looked at her with betrayal in their eyes. Jennifer, you can't, Michael began. Can't what? She interrupted. Can't finally work somewhere I'm respected? Can't earn the salary I deserve? She turned to Denise. I accept your proposal, and I want to help finish these projects. I know exactly what needs to be done in each of them. Denise smiled. Excellent. Welcome to the team, Jennifer. Brian was visibly upset. This is emotional blackmail. This is justice, Denise corrected. You had 20 years to do things right. Now it's my turn. Stephen looked at Michael for support, but the company president seemed lost in his own thoughts. Michael, Stephen called. Say something. Michael took a deep breath. Jennifer is right, he finally said. We messed up. We messed up badly. Richard stared at him in disbelief. Michael, are you crazy? We're not going to humiliate ourselves for this. For this what? Michael interrupted. For this competent woman who achieved in 3 months what we couldn't in 2 years? He looked directly at Denise. I accept your proposal too. Stephen and Brian protested simultaneously, but Richard raised his hand. Wait, he said. Michael is right. We have no choice. He looked at Denise with a defeated expression. What position are you offering us? Michael and Richard can work as supervising engineers, she replied. You have the technical knowledge. You just need to learn to work as a team. And us? Stephen and Brian asked together. Stephen can work in the sales department, but not as a director. As a salesperson, you need to learn to treat every client with respect. Stephen tried to protest, but she continued. And Brian can work as a project coordinator, also not as a director. You need to learn that a good leader inspires, not humiliates. The two men exchanged glances, clearly unhappy but with no alternatives. And what would our salary be? Brian asked. $10,000 to start, Denise answered, with room for raises based on performance and attitude. Stephen choked. 10,000? We used to make 50. And look where that got you, she shot back. You ran an entire company into the ground. Michael spoke up. Denise, I understand we're being punished for our mistakes, but how are we supposed to support our families on that salary? The same way 230 employees support theirs on minimum wage, she replied. The difference is you'll have a chance to move up if you prove you've changed. Jennifer smiled faintly. It was the first time in 15 years she'd seen her colleagues treated the way they treated others. I have a question, she said. How did you find out everything about our company? The information you have is very detailed. Denise smiled mysteriously. Let's just say I had a good source. At that moment, the door opened, and in walked a woman around 60, with graying hair and dressed in a cleaning uniform. Excuse me, she said. May I come in to get the coffee tray? The 5 former partners recognized her immediately. It was Dorothy, the head cleaner who had worked at the company for over 20 years. Dorothy, Denise said, standing up. Please come in. In fact, I'd like to thank you. Michael was confused. Thank her? For what? Dorothy was my source, Denise revealed. For years, she witnessed all your meetings, heard all your conversations, and she was outraged by how you treated employees. The former partners stared at Dorothy in shock. Dorothy, Richard stammered. I what? She faced him boldly. I got tired of watching you humiliate hard-working people, tired of seeing families suffer because of your whims. She turned to Denise. When you approached me 6 months ago, I didn't hesitate to help. It was time someone brought justice. Michael was pale. 6 months? Denise, you planned this 6 months ago? I've been planning this for much longer than that, she admitted. Do you remember Amanda Johnson? The 5 exchanged glances, trying to recall. Amanda Johnson, Stephen repeated. The name sounds familiar. She was my daughter, said Denise, her voice heavy with emotion. A recently graduated architect, top of her class, with international specialization. The room fell into a thick silence. She came here looking for a job 3 years ago, Denise continued. And you humiliated her so badly she left in tears. Jennifer remembered. The young girl Michael said was better off as a secretary? That's the one, Denise confirmed. Michael was devastated. Denise, I didn't remember. Of course you didn't, she said. To you, she was just another woman to humiliate. To me, she was my daughter. She walked to the window, trying to control her emotions. Amanda left here broken. She said she never wanted to work in construction again, that she couldn't stand being disrespected by mediocre men anymore. Richard swallowed hard. What happened to her? She changed fields, Denise replied. Now she works as an architect on social projects. She earns much less than she could, but at least she's respected. Stephen was visibly shaken. Denise, we didn't know... Didn't know what? That the people you humiliate have families, have feelings, have dignity. She turned to them. How many other Amandas have you destroyed over the years? How many talents were wasted because of your arrogance? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing, Dorothy approached Denise and placed a hand on her shoulder. Mrs. Johnson, you did it. You got justice for your daughter and for all of us. Michael slowly stood up. Denise, I want to apologize. Not just for what we did to your daughter, but for everything. For all the arrogance, all the prejudice, all the injustice. He looked at Jennifer. Jennifer, I'm sorry. You deserved so much more respect than we gave you. Jennifer nodded, still hurt, but seeing sincerity in his eyes. Richard also spoke up. I apologize too. And I accept your proposal, Denise. I want to learn to be a better person. Stephen and Brian hesitated for a few seconds, but finally agreed. We accept too, they said together. Denise took a deep breath. The revenge she had planned for 3 years was finally coming to fruition, but she didn't feel the satisfaction she'd expected. Instead, she felt a mix of sadness and hope. Very well, she said. Then let's go over the final terms. She returned to the table and picked up more documents. Starting Monday, all employees of the former Williams & Partners Construction will officially be employees of Johnson Development Group. Workers' wages will be increased by 30%. Dorothy smiled broadly. Engineers and architects will have their salaries adjusted to market rates, Denise continued, and will implement a merit-based career plan. No more favoritism or influence. Jennifer was moved. What about the stalled projects? Michael asked. They'll resume next week, Denise informed them. I've already hired suppliers and settled the overdue payments. Within 6 months, all families will have their apartments. Stephen looked relieved. And the lawsuits? They'll all be settled, she said. I won't let any employee suffer for the previous management's mistakes. Brian was impressed by the planning. You really thought of everything. When you plan a turnaround of this scale, nothing can be left to chance, Denise replied. Dorothy picked up the coffee tray and headed for the door. Mrs. Johnson, would you allow me to make a comment? Of course, Dorothy. In 20 years working here, this was the first time I've seen these gentlemen treated the way they treated others, and it was a lesson they needed to learn. Michael lowered his head in shame. You're right, Dorothy, and I promise I'll strive to be a better person. I hope so, Mr. Williams, she replied, because now you'll find out what it's like to work for someone who values merit, not favoritism. After Dorothy left, Denise sat down again. I want to make one thing clear, she said. This isn't just personal revenge. It's an opportunity for transformation. She looked at each of them. You can choose to see this as humiliation, or you can choose to see it as a chance to start over, to become better people, better professionals. Jennifer spoke up. Denise, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. How were you able to forgive? How can you give us this chance after what we did to your daughter? Denise was silent for a few seconds. You know, Jennifer, I spent 3 years planning this revenge. I wanted to humiliate you in the worst way possible. I wanted to destroy your careers and your lives. She paused. But when I started investigating the company more deeply, I realized you weren't the only ones to blame. You were products of a system that allows and encourages this kind of behavior. Michael listened intently. And then I understood that real change wouldn't come from destruction, but from transformation. Destroying you wouldn't make Amanda smile again, but transforming you might prevent other Amandas from being hurt. Stephen was visibly moved. Denise, I promise I'll honor this opportunity. We all will, Richard added. Brian stood up. Denise, can I ask you something? How did your daughter react when she found out about your plan? Denise's face brightened for the first time in the meeting. Amanda doesn't know anything yet, she admitted. I wanted to surprise her. Jennifer smiled. What kind of surprise? Well, Denise said, picking up her phone, how about if I call her right now and offer her the position of Architectural Projects Director at Johnson Development Group? The 5 former partners exchanged glances, realizing Denise had planned every detail not just for revenge, but to build something better. Amanda, Denise said into the phone. It's me, Mom. Can you come to the old Williams & Partners construction office? I have a job proposal for you. During the brief call, Denise's expression softened. The hardness of the last few moments gave way to maternal tenderness. She's on her way, she announced after hanging up. Should be here in half an hour. Michael hesitated before asking, Denise, are you going to tell her what we did? I'll tell her the truth, she replied, but I'll also tell her you apologized and are willing to change. Richard sighed in relief. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Denise said. The real proof of your change will be in your daily work, how you treat employees, clients, suppliers. Jennifer was anxious. How do you think Amanda will react? I don't know, Denise admitted. She's a strong woman, but that experience left deep scars. Stephen spoke up. We'll do everything we can to make her feel welcome and respected. I hope so, Denise said, because she's an exceptional professional. If you'd valued the talent of the people you dismissed, this company would never have gone bankrupt. Brian reflected on her words. How many other talented professionals did we lose because of our prejudice? Too many, Denise answered. But now you have the chance to rehire some of them, to show that the company has changed. Michael got excited about the idea. Did you keep their contact information? I did, she said, smiling. And many of them told me they'd come back to work with us if they knew the environment had truly changed. At that moment, the door opened, and a young woman around 30 entered, with curly black hair, wearing a navy blue blazer over a white blouse. She was clearly a younger version of Denise. Mom, she said, looking around the room. What's going on here? Denise stood up and hugged her daughter. Amanda, these are Michael, Richard, Stephen, Brian, and Jennifer from the old Williams & Partners construction. Amanda recognized their faces immediately. Her expression shifted from curiosity to discomfort. Mom, why did you bring me here? Because this company is now called Johnson Development Group, Denise explained, and I'd like to offer you the position of Director of Architectural Projects. Amanda stared at her mother in disbelief. What do you mean, Johnson Development Group? I bought the company, sweetheart, Denise said simply. The shock on Amanda's face was evident. She looked at the 5 former partners who were visibly embarrassed. Do you know who I am? She asked. Michael stepped forward. We do, Amanda, and we want to deeply apologize for what we did 3 years ago. Amanda crossed her arms, still wary. Apologize? We were prejudiced, arrogant, and unfair, Michael continued. We didn't deserve your talent back then, and we know that. Richard joined in. Amanda, we made a serious mistake, not just with you, but with many others. Your mother taught us a lesson we'll never forget. Amanda looked at Denise, trying to understand what had happened. Mom, can you explain all this to me? Denise sighed. Sweetheart, when you left here crying 3 years ago, I swore I'd make things right one day. I spent all this time planning a way to show these men what it feels like to be disrespected and underestimated. She gestured around the room. And today I succeeded, but in the process I realized destroying them wouldn't bring your smile back, so I decided to give them a chance to redeem themselves. Amanda was slowly processing the information. And you? She asked the former partners. How does it feel being led by people you look down on? Stephen answered honestly, humiliated, ashamed. but also grateful for the chance to learn and change. Brian agreed. Your mother could have simply crushed us. Instead, she's giving us a fresh start. Jennifer stepped closer to Amanda. Amanda, I know what it's like to work where you're not respected. I spent 15 years being underestimated here. Your mother is offering something none of us ever did, real equality. Amanda looked back at Denise. And you're sure you want to work with these people? I'm sure I want to give them the opportunity to prove they can change, Denise replied, but only if you're comfortable. If you don't want to, I completely understand. Amanda walked to the window, gazing at the city as she thought. The silence in the room was tense. After a few minutes, she turned around. I have some conditions, she said. What are they? Denise asked. I want full autonomy over my projects, Amanda began. I want my technical decisions respected, and I want any disagreements discussed with professional arguments, not personal bias. Michael nodded immediately. We fully agree. And one more thing, Amanda continued. I want an internship program created for young architects from underserved communities, so they can have the opportunities I was almost denied. Denise smiled proudly. Consider it done. Amanda took a deep breath. Then I accept the position. The room erupted in applause. Even the former partners clapped, recognizing they were witnessing a historic moment. Welcome to the new Johnson Development Group, said Denise, embracing her daughter. Stephen approached timidly. Amanda, I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to working with you, to learning from your talent. Amanda looked at him seriously. Stephen, I'll give you the same opportunity my mother is offering, but trust will have to be earned day by day. We understand completely, said Richard. Brian spoke up. Amanda, can we start this Monday? I'm eager to see how a real architect works. Amanda almost smiled. You can start, but be ready to work hard. I won't accept mediocrity just because you're making amends. Jennifer laughed. I think they'll have their work cut out for them. Michael sighed. It's the least we deserve. Denise checked her watch. Well, I think we can wrap up for today. Monday marks the official start of the company's new chapter. As everyone prepared to leave, Amanda approached her mother. Mum, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Do you really forgive them? Denise thought for a moment. You know, Amanda, I realized holding on to anger for 3 years was eating me up more than it hurt them. Turning that anger into action was liberating. Amanda nodded. And do you think they'll really change? I don't know, Denise admitted, but I'll give them the chance to prove they can. If they fail, at least I tried. Michael, who had overheard, stepped closer. Denise, Amanda, I promise we'll honor your trust, not just because we need the jobs, but because it's the right thing to do. Richard joined them. You taught us today that justice isn't about revenge, it's about the chance to make things right. Stephen and Brian agreed. We'll make this work, said Stephen. All of us together, added Brian. Jennifer smiled. For the first time in 15 years, I'm actually excited to go to work on Monday. Dorothy, who had returned to clean the room, paused to listen. Mrs. Johnson, what you did today was beautiful. You showed that we can win without destroying anyone. Denise hugged her. Dorothy, thank you for everything. None of this would have been possible without your help. It was my pleasure, Mrs. Johnson. Watching these men swallow their own poison was downright satisfying. Everyone laughed, including the men themselves. Dorothy, said Michael, will you give us a chance too? I will, Mr. Williams, she replied, but I'll be watching. One slip-up, and I'm telling the boss. You go right ahead, Michael said, smiling. When everyone finally left the room, Denise stayed behind for a few minutes. She looked around the space where she'd been humiliated hours earlier and smiled. It wasn't exactly the revenge she'd planned, but it was something far better, real transformation. Amanda returned. Mom, I forgot my bag. Amanda, Denise said, are you sure this is the right choice? I don't want you to feel pressured. Mom, Amanda interrupted, for the first time in 3 years, I'm excited to work as an architect again. You gave me back my professional dignity. She hugged Denise, and more importantly, you showed me we can fight injustice without becoming unjust ourselves. That's what I hope, sweetheart. We'll make it happen, Mom. We'll turn this company into an example of how things should be done. Denise smiled. Yes, we will. They left the room together, leaving behind not just a business meeting, but the start of a new era, one where competence, respect, and dignity would be the guiding values. The following Monday, Johnson Development Group opened its doors with a renewed team and a clear mission to prove that business success and social justice can go hand in hand. End of story. So, what did you think of this tale of transformation and justice? Do you think Denise made the right choice by giving her former partners a second chance? Tell us in the comments, which part moved you the most? Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other amazing stories like this one.